Hello and welcome to another episode of Releasing Your Inner Dragon with Marie and Drake. I am Marie Mullaney. I'm a fantasy author and world-building YouTuber. And with me, as always, is my partner in crime.
I'm Max Alexander Drake, or Drake as everyone calls me. Award-winning author, written everything, teach everything. We'll just go with that.
Today, we are going to be talking about a very interesting topic because we are going to discuss rights and what to do when you tangle with a publisher. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, add us to your favorites, share us, do all of those things that drive engagement and get our voices out there to more people. Okay, so let me set the scene for you all, because this
Setting
is
the
my
scene.
topic.
First step in writing a scene.
Yep. So there I was, a brave indie author with 2 books to my name, and I had the second book in the Amazon store. Now, I had taken the decision with my ebooks to go for Kindle Unlimited, which means that I give Amazon exclusive rights to distribute the ebooks. So I'm not allowed to distribute them anywhere else except Amazon. And everything was going fine. The books had been up for, both books had now been up for 3 months. The first book had been up for 1 year and 3 months. And I got this email out of nowhere that said, Amazon have found that your content of your book is widely available for download. So we have blocked your book on Amazon, specifically your ebook on Amazon, because, of exclusivity and all the rest of that jazz. And let us know what you do about it. That was more or less the email. So I did a fair amount of panicking, as one does when you suddenly get an email that says, your year's worth of work has been put on hold by a company that is 50 million times as big as you are and could squash you like a teeny little tiny gnat. So I went searching for the content of my book and where it was. Now, I have my inciting incident of this horrifying email, and off I go on my quest to figure out what's happened. And it turns out that a PDF of my book, including my copyright page and my cover, had been uploaded to a site called Z Library, where it was available for free to anyone without needing a login. You don't need a login or nothing. So I figured that this is likely what Amazon is complaining about, since, as I said, I'm on Kindle Unlimited. It means exclusivity. Okay. Now, I know that there exists a law called the DMCA, and that you can issue takedown notices under this. So, bravely armed with my knowledge of the internet, I headed off to figure out how I can use this law to get this library to remove my PDF. Yeah, there's a lot of dragons involved in the DMCA. And one of the first sites I found wanted to charge me $200 per takedown. I was like, well, no. And I did some more research and found a guy who had made a template available. So I took his template and wrote it in my own words and mailed it off to Z Library. Excellent. They responded within an hour and disabled the download button, which I guess is as good as it's going to get. Okay. So I'm like, okay, yay, I have slayed the dragon. No, see, that was the false overcome. Because the real problem
or
here...
was it the mid-act 2 climax?
It might have been the
mid-act 2
climax.
Yeah.
So
it's where you're now ready to go after the actual conflict.
So I mailed Amazon and told them, I found this link. I sent them a DMC takedown notice. Those guys took the content down. Please, can you reinstate the book? Nothing. I mailed them again the next day. Nothing. I mailed them again the day after that. Still nothing. As of recording, I have heard nothing from the Amazon technical department. I phoned them today. Now, you can't get to the people who actually do the content reviews, but you can get to customer service. So I phoned them and asked them to please remove my book from Kindle Unlimited so that I'm at least no longer in violation of exclusivity. And so that in the true overcome, I can now, instead of just selling through Amazon, at least sell the book through other retailers. Because I don't know when, if ever, Amazon will unblock this book. But in order to get customer services to take my book out of KDP Select, I had to spend an hour on the phone because they kept trying to tell me, but you can just click on the ellipsis and tell the book to no longer be in KDP Select. And I was like, no, I can't, because the book is blocked, and that means I can't interact with it. The ellipsis button is grayed out. So that was, my story of my ongoing battle with Amazon and my decision to circumvent the problem by going for a wide publishing approach as opposed to a exclusive one with Amazon itself. And here we are talking about what to do if your content is pirated, what is copyright, ISBNs, and all of those kinds of things.
And probably some other rabbit chases as we go down this
probably
interestingly weird topic.
So, Drake, you also have a story of your content being pirated, though yours is somewhat different.
Mine was plagiarized, not pirated. So I've had things pirated before. I've gone down the same path. Actually, the funny thing is when we got on and Marie was telling me this story about what happened to her, I went ahead and just went to the website that she had, had her stuff on. And sure enough, my stuff is on there as well. So I've already started the process of having them remove that as well. Now, for the most part, it was my out of print stuff. So I really don't care about that. But one of my creative writing books was on there, which actually do sell really well. And I am, teaching all over the place and pushing that content and making a whole bunch of new content for teaching. And I'd rather them not, give away that I put so much effort into and so much time and 30 years of experience and everything else.
Small plug for Drake's content. I've thoroughly enjoyed every single teaching book I've read. So buy Drake's teaching books.
Thank you. I mean, so I guess I actually want to start a step back. So back when I was in the corporate world, which was almost 20 years ago now, because I had been a full-time writer for a long time, one of the things that I did a lot was, shockingly, I taught salespeople. I've always been really good at teaching people things. And it's interesting teaching salespeople because you would think that it's kind of a more natural thing, and it really isn't. And one of the big things is, well, there was two aspects to it. So I owned a computer company and I had actual just dedicated salespeople. And the one hardest thing that I had to drive into their heads was they had to ask for the sale. So they'd be very knowledgeable on the product. They'd go out there and be like, oh, yes, this is what it does. This is how it matches all your needs. This is why the price is right. This is why everything. And then they would stare at the customer and the customer would go, okay, great. Thanks for the information. And they'd leave. And it's like, no. You gotta say, so can we go ahead and ring this up? Like, you got to ask for that sale. And then, if they give you a no, that's great. That's just an obstacle. And now you overcome that. Like, okay, why? Why can't we do it right now? Now, of course, the answer is, well, I don't have any money. Then there's really not much you can do about that. But here's where this relates. I also had techs that, we billed $180 an hour for these techs to go out and do what they were supposed to do. We dealt with doctors and hospitals and military bases and all this stuff. And especially my younger techs, they would go out and they'd be on site for like 6 hours and they'd come back with an hour bill. Oh. And I'm like, wait, you were there for 6 hours? Well, yeah, but I mean, some of it was me trying to figure out because I'd never seen this issue before. And some of it was like, well, I'm just having a good time because I really enjoy doing this stuff. And it's like, no. You're a professional. you get paid $180 an hour. Now, obviously, they didn't get paid that. That's what the company got paid. We had overhead, but they still got paid really well. And I'm like, you can't go see a lawyer and them, be in a lawyer's office for 6 hours and have them bill you for one. That's not going to happen. They bill you by the minute. You're there an hour and 1 minute. They're going to bill you. Technically, they're going to round it up to the next 15 minutes. So they're an hour and a minute, and they're going to bill you for an hour and 15. And so that's kind of the thing that I feel like a lot of writers fall into. They fall into this, oh, well, I just really enjoy doing what I'm doing. And like, do I really deserve to get paid? Yes, you do. Like, that's the thing. This is a job. And I had a discussion, this is probably 10, 12 years ago. And a lot of weird things happened to me in my career. And this is one of those kind of moments. It was at Gen Con, so the massive Dungeons and Dragons convention is held in Indianapolis every year. And it was toward the end, and it might have even been the last day. And it was because I remember it was also toward the end of the evening where we were going to be closing up shop, because the dude stayed while I was breaking my booth down. And he came up wearing a t-shirt that whatever the big pirating site was back at the time, I don't remember what it was, but it was whatever 15, 12, 13 years ago, there was a huge, massive pirating site. At least I don't see those sites anymore.
Pirate Bay?
Big scale. Might have been Pirate Bay, whatever. But he was advertising this. And he literally stopped at my booth and he picked up one of my books and he goes, I don't pay for books because they're free. And I was like, I don't understand. And he was like, well, I mean, you're selling information and information is free. I'm like, no, I'm not selling information. Like, I'm selling entertainment. I'm going to entertain you for however long it takes you to read the book. I mean, some people can read one of my books in 4, 5, 6 hours. Me, it takes me 3, 4 days to get through a book like that. But I'm entertaining you. That's what you're buying. You're not buying the book. You're not buying the ebook. You're not buying, the audio book. You're buying the entertainment value of that. And I don't think I won him over, but my argument was this. And we argued for probably 3 hours, but here was the crux of my argument. If me as a professional storyteller, if I don't get paid doing what I'm doing, then I can't do what I do, because I have to eat. I have to put food in my children's stomach and my wife's stomach. I have to pay for our shelter and our heating and our cooling. I have to pay for this stuff. And so either I can get paid enough as a professional entertainer to really focus in on making a high quality entertainment package for you, or I go get a job to put food on my table. And therefore I don't have the time to devote to creating exceptionally good entertainment. And so what you're stuck with is, if everything is free, you're stuck with fan fiction. That's what you're stuck with. You're stuck with people that aren't skilled, that just do this as a hobby, and they just do it on a whim and they give it away for free.
Yep.
Now, that's not a dig toward fanfic, but fanfic is not at the level that professional, and yes, there is some fanfic out there that's probably better than some professionally published stuff. I'm definitely not going to argue that point. Because there's been some fanfic.
There is because there has been some published authors like who's our dude, Good Kind, Robert C. Newcomb, and that atrocious Fifth Sorceress. I mean,
50 Shades of Grey.
Like,
I mean,
those are all published content. So that there are definitely fan fictions that are better.
Well, and one of the things I always say is, like, people ask me my opinion on fanfic, and I'll always go, any practice is good practice, because you're getting, as long as you get feedback on that stuff, it's kind of like having a public writer's room, with beta readers. And I admire that, because one of the things that bothers me about indie press, and I realize I'm in the indie press world, but one of the things that bothers me about it is when people self-published and they go, yeah, I know I'm not ready. I know my stuff sucks, but I'm still going to charge you money to read it. And it's like, that's robbery. That's theft. No, throw that stuff out there for free. Throw it up there on fanfic, whatever you want to do. When I was, Farmers and Mercenaries got picked up and published, I never submitted it. I had most of it written, and it was up on a website. And this is early days of like I was one of the first authors to have an author website because it just didn't exist. Because I was an earlier adopter of it because of my computer company that I just mentioned that I owned. And like one of my favorite stories is I was one of the first 10 people to buy the IBM Net.commerce package, which was going to be this crazy online selling platform that had never happened before. Dropped $500,000, to get involved in that. And IBM completely fumbled the ball and we lost all of our money. And, the whole thing was just a fiasco. But that's how early I was in on the system. I knew that it was going to be something big. Unfortunately, getting burned by $500,000 kind of made me gun shine. I never went back into it. And then, now you got Amazon and everything else. But neither here nor there. I've had plenty of times where I didn't make money when I was hoping I should. But that's the problem that I have with indie press. If you know you're not good enough, if you know your stuff is not good, then putting it out there for sale bothers me because I feel like you're a criminal, you're a thief, and you hate on me all you want for that, but that's what I feel.
So my problem with some of the indie press isn't even so much that as it is that, but it's actually a very specific niche of the indie press. It is the YouTube writers. Okay, and I realize that I am one of those people. Like I have a YouTube channel and I write books. But that cross section has given rise to people who give writing advice or they give writing reviews, which is why I generally have steered away from writing advice until we had this podcast and focused on what I know I'm good at, which is world building. Because I saw people doing reviews and people giving writing advice, and then they published their books. And I will be kind and say that they were good if what you wanted was channel merchandise. If you wanted to buy the book to support the person's channel and never actually read it, it made for a pretty ornament for your bookcase. And that's about it.
Yeah. But I mean, it like I'm a huge fan of Kirkman's. He's the guy who created The Walking Dead and I'm pretty sure he did Invincible. If I'm not mistaken, that's his I think it is his superhero thing. Fantastic comic book writer, just fantastic. He's done a couple prose books on The Walking Dead, and they are just abysmal, just
That's
awful.
the thing. Like some of these guys can see what's going wrong in the writing, right? Because they highlight the right things when they review other people's books.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that they can also fix it in their work.
Well, and I think I've talked about this on the podcast. I know I talk about it in some of my classes, Drake's 5 stages of editing grief. The first stage is just being able to take critiques because a lot of people can't. The second stage, though, is when once you learn that something is wrong, the second stage is when you can see it in other people's writings. You can't see it in your own, but you can see it in others. But that means that as soon as you start seeing other people's writings, you've reached stage 2. Now there's still 3 stages to go. So if you're just only seeing it in other people's writing, you still suck. Because the next stage is when you start catching it in your own writing, but well into the editing process. Like you've read it 4, 5, 8 times, and you're like, wow, how did I miss this? The fourth step is when you start catching yourself while you write it. And now you've again advanced. And then that last step is when it's just no longer in your writing vocabulary. And now you have mastered that one thing. Problem is you have to go through all 5 stages of editing grief for the tens of thousands of things you have to learn as a prose writer. And that's why it takes so long to learn this craft.
So I do want to say on the topic of this dragon that I've slain or that I'm in the process of slaying, it has led
or maybe
me
getting eaten by.
Or maybe getting eaten by, but I don't think so. I am spiky and tough, and I can take a punch or 2 to the stomach. There are other retailers besides Amazon. If all else fails, I have a platform and I will sell the book via my website. Because these days you can just get like a little plugin for your website. You don't need to pay $500,000.
Yeah.
for. Yeah. Anyway.
Right. Yes, I know. Just rub some salt in it.
It did lead me to editing The Hidden Blade. Not because I have a deep and fundamental problem with the plot. The plot is fine. I'm happy with the plot. I'm happy with the characters. I'm happy with the world building. In fact, one of the most common threads in the reviews that I get is that the world building is amazing because it also is delivered without exposition. So, all of those things make me really happy. But from a line editing, writing craft perspective.
It's because you started hanging around with this jerk that just started talking about how important each line, every word, every sentence means.
But
that's your fault. That's your fault.
It is. But I do feel like I do want to do this, and it is only 95,000 words, so I can edit it in a month. I know, but like my skill level is growing, and
Oh, God. I mean, that's the thing, and I've said this. I don't know if I've ever said this directly to you, but I've definitely said it to other people. And I think it's because English isn't your native language. And I found that with other people where English isn't their native language. But I feel like you make adjustments to English faster than anyone I've ever seen in my life. So, with everyone else, it's like, hey, you do this aspect of writing wrong. And the next time I read their stuff, hey, you're still doing this aspect wrong. You're doing a little less, but you're still doing it wrong. And the next time you're still doing it. 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 And then like 8 months later, it's like, finally, I start seeing some improvement. And with us, when we've done, when we've, after a podcast or whatever, we'll spend 30 minutes reading something of yours and I'll critique or whatever. And then the next time I never see it again, it's just gone. And it's because I really do think it might be because that you just since English isn't your native language, it's now information as opposed to this ingrained kind of innate way of speaking. Where it's just like, I think that's the reason why Americans have such a hard time really getting into prose and why it takes so long is because they've already been speaking that way for so long. You're not just learning new information, you're breaking an ingrained habit. And so that's something that's always impressed me about working with you is just how quickly you just boom, provided you buy into it. I mean, so far I think you bought into everything that I said, but I'm sure that if there was something I said that you were like, nope, then it wouldn't happen. But because you are spiky, as you said earlier.
Yeah, but thank you. But yeah, so I am editing The Hidden Blade. So if you're listening to this, the new revised edition might be out or it might not be out. If you did previously buy it, I am just going to publish it as a revised edition, so you can download the update. It's not like I'm gonna publish a new book or anything, but it will be,
unless Amazon doesn't let you.
Well,
you maybe
they
set
will
up an entire new ISBN number for it.
The Ducal Heir is the one that's blocked, not The Hidden Blade.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah,
because weren't both on there?
Yeah, they've just blocked the one and just the ebook.
Well, yeah, that's because with Kindle Unlimited, you're only required to have the digital version exclusive with them. I've never used Kindle Unlimited. I doubt if I ever will.
At this point, I can't advise it because if somebody pirates you, you could end up in this position.
Well, my problem is that, so, and I think we talked about this, and I know I've talked about this in the last week or two, but I'm now doing so many different teaching things. That is one thing I do want to pimp. I'm doing my monthly Q&A. So the first Tuesday of every month, you can join me live. Right now, it's limited to 100 people. Now, there's only about 28 people that showed up this first one. But I thought that was pretty good for my very first one, considering that we really didn't advertise it at all. But so the first Tuesday of every month, go to starvingwriterstudio.com/Zoom. You can sign up for it. They'll send you the link the day before the Zoom happens. And then you can join in on the Zoom. You can ask questions and so on and so forth. Again, always, I'm looking for questions anyway. So send any questions you do have to questions@drakeu.com, and I'll throw those on my daily writing questions. But at some point, I've answered this question. When it comes to publishers, and one of the reasons why I've made the decision to leave traditional publishing and go exclusively I have to chew gum, by the way, because of what I had to go through with my cancer. So sometimes it gets in my way. Um, is for the longest time, the only thing publishers ever owned was distribution. That was it. You can edit your own book. You can hire editors. You can typeset your own book. You can hire typesetters. You can print your own book. You can hire printers. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can't get into bookstores. You can't get to customers. You can't get to the end user because publishers own that. Well, that has been drastically destroyed and going into, with the Amazon model. And yes, Barnes and Noble's in the Nook, that was a failed thing, but there's still Kobo up in Canada. There's still some things over in Europe.
Apple Books is Apple is the second biggest digital platform for books, and it is growing. It showed a good 5% of Amazon in the last 2 years in the ebook format.
Do they still require that you have to set their entire account up and manage your account through a Macintosh computer?
No, you can do it through a browser.
Okay, because I still have books. My books are the ones that are out of print. The only the place that they are in print is on the Apple Store, because back in the day, you could only set up an account from an Apple computer, and you can only manage your account from an Apple computer. And so the publisher had invested in that, and they had that. I don't have a Macintosh. I do everything on PC. So when that publisher went out of business and I bought, all my rights back from them, and I mean, I got my rights back, but I bought other things. Like I bought the cover and I bought the ISBN numbers, and I actually kind of bought their entire catalog, even though it really was just me and I just let everything else go. I never could take the Apple stuff off because I was just like, well, I'm not even going to try because I don't have a Macintosh. But if they've set it up, I really kind of need to log in there. And because also, if I'm making any sales on there, it's going to a bank account that doesn't exist anymore from a company that doesn't exist anymore, and I'm not getting paid any of it. So it might as well be being pirated as far as I'm concerned. So I need to kind of log in there and figure that stuff out. I should add that to my list. But anyway.
Yeah. So Apple Books definitely one.
Well, there's also
Google Books if you're an Android user.
So Google, we were right on the cusp of that too. And then, because Google was like, oh, we're going to do this thing. And it was very confusing and hard. I remember I was trying to help them set it up on Google. So my stuff may be on Google still for all I know, because I haven't looked into that either. However, at the exact same time as when Google went insane and went, you know what? Books should be free. We're going to just publish everything for free. And of course, everyone got pissed off at that because we're like, yeah, no. Again, if you want nothing but free entertainment, then you're going to get fanfic. Yeah. That's what you're going to get. That's going to be your entire level of entertainment. You will never get anything that's professionally done again. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You have to pay professionals. But anyway, getting back to this. So that's Amazon and others. And what I was going to say is somebody is doing books that is weird, but it's starting to really catch on, the digital books. And it's either Spotify or...
No, Spotify's doing the audiobooks. And actually,
maybe that's it.
Let's talk a little bit about different types of rights. Okay,
but let me finish.
Yeah.
Well, let me finish this. So publishers don't own distribution anymore is basically the point, is because you have all these avenues that you as an individual can go after. But here's the next step, and here's what I'm working on, because I do have a decent sized fan base. I need to wake them up. I haven't had anything fiction come out in a long time. I've actually made the commitment to myself. Now I just started, but I've made the commitment to myself that I'm going to write 1 million words over the next 12 months. Now I'm on track, but I only started 3 days ago. So I'm at 12,000 words in 3 days. And after this podcast, I do plan on hitting actually, I'm going to try to do 5,000 words before my writers group tonight. So that'll even be even more ahead. But yes, I've made the commitment. I'm going to try to write 1 million words between, before Halloween next year, October 31st. That's my goal. We'll see if I can actually make that. That is a lot of freaking words. But even if I hit 700,000 words, what do they say? Shoot for the moon. And then if you fall short, you still got really, really high. So that's kind of what I'm hoping that this drives me to do. But here's the thing. Here's the next step. The next step is direct to consumers, because yes, Amazon and Kobo and Spotify and, Audible and all this other stuff is great, but they still take their cut. So, if you can build your mailing list to customers who love you, customers, fans do want to support you. Most fans, and you got those outliers like that jerk face that came up to me with I think it was Pirate Bay, now that I'm thinking about it, t-shirt. You've always got those. Most fans understand that they want you to be successful so that you continue to feed them entertainment that they love. They're a fan of yours. So Brandon Sanderson made the $42 million off the 4 books that he just did direct to fans. Then he did a little model, little figurine of some of his stuff and made another like $7 million. And these are just figurines that you're going to put on your shelf. Now, I have a bunch of figurines on my shelf, so I'm definitely in support of all that stuff. Matter of fact, this is a little prototype duty, but I'm working on my own little figurines for my own little guys. So this is from the book 1 cover. But anyway, those things, fans want to support you, and fans know, and because this has happened my whole life.
You do. I want to speak about that, because I agree with you, but you need a base for that. You need a mailing list or a group or a way to get to people, right?
But you also don't need to exclude it. I'm not going to not go with Amazon and not go with Kobo and not go with all these other companies. But what I am now, what me and my marketing team are seriously working on, is developing a direct consumer model where, so like with The Realm, we're dropping 4 novels a year, 1 every 3 months. And I've already had, we haven't announced this yet, but we always knew we were going to do a subscription model. We always knew that. Pay for 4 books at a time, and then you just get them. We just ship them to you. And we're going to have different levels where you can get them all already pre-autographed, which is something that's going to be very difficult considering, we're spread out all over the place. So if you're just trying to get them autographed on your own, that's difficult. There's a way for us to do it internally during the printing process that allows all the authors to physically sign all the books. Basically we print off the copyright page by itself, 1,000 of them or whatever, and then ship those to each of the authors, and everybody signs them all. And then it gets shipped back to the printer. And then as they print the book, they bind that copyright page in with everybody's signatures on it. And that's been the way it's been for years and years and years. That's not something unique to me. However, my point is that the direct consumer market and cutting out even the, retailer for, an artist, because margins are getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. It's a reason why publishing, when I got in this industry, it was the big 12, and now it's the big 4, because they have to gobble each other up, because it's the only way they can stay in business is with that much, little bits of money off of tons and tons and tons of different things.
Exactly. Many of the big names, I think, like Brandon Sanderson says, yes, sure, he'll still publish through Tor, but not everything.
Also why?
Yeah.
If you just made 5 times the amount of money self-publishing as you did with your massive, insanely big contract with Tor. An unheard of contract with Tor, and then you self-publish and make 5 times that. I don't know. I don't see it. I think that's where, and is it going to be a little bit more hard on consumers? Yes, it is going to be a little more hard on consumers. It also is going to, there's a more chance of failure trying to do it. That's why I said you can't ignore the actual resellers. You can't not go on Amazon. Maybe if I get to the point where we're making $42 million off of, a Realm year doing pre-sales, then maybe I don't list it on Amazon. I doubt it, but still maybe. But the reality is that's not going to happen. And I know that's not going to happen.
I do want to get us back on track and talk about the different kinds of copyright that exist. Because this is actually also important. Your book isn't just copyrighted for content. Yes, the content is in and of itself belongs to you. Okay. And nobody's allowed to take that content in any format and sell it as theirs. But when a company says they exclusively have the distribution rights, okay, it means for that specific medium. Like, for example, my audiobook is exclusively distributed by Findaway Voices to all the other audiobook channels, but I tell them that I won't undercut their, like, by going to anybody else. Okay, so Findaway Voices does my distribution of my audiobook. And that is a separate thing from my print book, which is print on demand through Amazon, which is separate from my EPUBs, from my electronic books, which were exclusively through Amazon and, will now go wide. But there's also some other things to consider. Your cover page has got its own copyright associated with it, like the artwork of your cover page, right? If you do an audiobook, there are two rights associated with it: the content, which you as the author own, and the production copyright, which is the speaking part.
Right.
So you have to think about all of those various different types of copyright. If you have a hardback and a softback, those are two different sets of copyright distributions. And every one of these things needs its own ISBN number.
So, sort of. The first thing. The second thing, you're right. So these, what we call these in the industry, are bindings. So a hardback is a binding, a softback is a binding. A mass market softback is a different binding than a trade paperback binding. The ebook, the audiobook, so on and so forth. However, when it comes to copyright, it's print. There's a print copyright, there's a digital copyright, and there's an audio copyright. So print copyright, now, it can be broken down. So you're not wrong. That's why I said sort of. You're not wrong. I can have a hardback copyright and a paperback copyright and so on and so forth, and I can divide them out. Normally, the way it works is it's all print. So when you sell your rights to a publisher, what you're not actually selling the content rights. You're selling them the right to produce it and sell it. It's called the print rights. And so normally, if you sell, to a tour, whatever, Random House, you're selling the print rights. And that means they can do hardback and paperback. Yes, you can divide it out. And yes, the contract will read that you get different royalty rates for them. You'll get more for hardbacks, so they sell for more. There's more profit. You'll get less for mass market. And then in between, you get those the trade paperbacks, which is why trade paperbacks have become so successful. Well, there's two reasons. One, you also can't mass market, or you can't print on demand mass market size. So, that's why that is there. But it goes a step further because it's also per language. So like when I sold to somebody, it was you get the English, North American print rights, digital rights, whatever. Or maybe they get the full worldwide. I mean, that's the thing. If you're a first-time traditional published author, they're going to take everything. They're going to take your worldwide print rights, your worldwide digital rights, your worldwide audiobook rights. They're going to take adaptation rights, which means they get the rights to, if it gets made in a comic book, movie, video game, whatever. And a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute, why would I give them all? Well, first of all, you will always get your cut. So it always infuriates me when somebody says, I'm never going to trade pub because why should I only get 10% of the profit when they get 90? They're not getting 90. They're lucky if they get 10. Yeah. So they're not getting more than you. They're getting equal at you at best, probably less than you. So even when it comes to adaptation rights, the contracts, the standard boilerplate is 50% to you. So if they sell the movie rights, whatever they make, let's say they make $100,000, you get 50,000 of that. And who do you know in Hollywood, and how are you going to sell the movie rights to it? So they should earn that 50% because they have the contacts and all of that. So that's, rights do get really, really complicated, but they don't have to be. It really depends on the contract, and it is on a contract by contract basis. And even like you can do crazy stuff. Like one of the things that Brandon Sanderson did that was so brilliant with Tor. Now, obviously, he couldn't do this with the Wheel of Time, but what he did with his Stormlight Chronicles is he said, yeah, I'll sell you the print rights, except for I want to keep the ability to make a collector's edition physical copy, which then he made $6 million on a Kickstarter for really republishing a book that everyone who bought that book already owned that book. Like, there wasn't a single person that threw that money at that $6 million Kickstarter that didn't already own the first book of that. They just wanted a leather bound, really high end new art put on their shelf and all of that. I'm not going to say whether or not I might have also dropped $200 on that book that might or might not be sitting over there on my shelf, next to the retail version that I also might or might not have bought, allegedly, that might allegedly be sitting over there. So, like, that was really smart of him. And normally you can't do that. Normally an author can't do their own print version of a book that a publisher, because they own that rights. You've sold that away. You don't own it anymore. You still own the copyright of the text, but you can't print it. You can't sell it. You can't do anything with it. So, you just have to think about that when you're dealing with rights.
But you also have to think about it in terms of your indie setup. Because remember, so if I'd been traditionally published, what happened to me would not have happened, right? Of course, I mean, it would have been a whole different setup, but Amazon is not going to go to a traditional publishing house and say, there's a pirated copy, we're going to take down this author's book. That's not going to happen. Because the publisher has got a weight that I don't. Like, if it's a big publishing house, like, they're not going to go to Tor.
I will bet you if Tor decided to do something on Kindle Unlimited, which they might, I have no idea. And Amazon's, because it's all algorithms. If Amazon's algorithms found that, when it's searching the web constantly for things in violation of its policies, it would probably ban the book and send a notice to Tor. Now, would they answer Tor faster than they answered you? Now, that I will say yes, they will absolutely, and it might be an even more personal letter, like hey, on this website, this is listed. And maybe I might even go so far as they don't actually ban it, but they give the warning and say, hey, look, you got a week to take care of this, or we're going to have to take it down. Maybe they treat them differently, 100%. But I don't know.
But the point is, like, it wouldn't be like me, where they've ghosted me,
right,
and just ignored the fact that I've been mailing.
But I'm just saying they wouldn't not go after them for contract violation just because they're a big publisher. They might treat them a lot more with kid gloves.
Yeah,
but
But I do want to talk a little bit about ISBN numbers, because I feel like that's something that people don't know enough about often.
Yeah.
So if you publish, like, through Amazon or whatever, they will offer you an Amazon number. If you want to go wide with your publishing strategy, if you want to sell on more platforms than just Amazon, you shouldn't take their number. You should get an ISBN number. Now, each country has its own agency that issues these numbers. In Finland, we get our ISBN numbers from the National Finnish Library. We get one, you get one, this is what I was talking about, when you get one for a print book, a hardback, an audio, every single type of publishing has its own ISBN number. And we then have to send copies of that article to the National Library, and that's the only cost that we have. But in America, I think you have to pay for the ISBNs.
You do. So in America, it's run by a company called Bowker, Bowker. Their website is myidentifiers.com. Now, there are brokers. You can get ISBNs for $10. You can get them for $1. You can get them for whatever. You can get them cheap if you go through brokers. And then, yes, you're right, Amazon will give you a free one. And some people are like, well, why would I want? And actually, my recommendation is, for the most part, indie authors should just get the free one from Amazon, for the most part, because
not if you want to go beyond their platform.
Right. Most indie authors are just going to publish. Like, I've got a lot of author friends that never publish anywhere else but Amazon. And if that's all you're going to do, why waste the money? Because if you buy one ISBN from Bowker, it's $125 for one. Now, if you go bulk, you can get 10. I'm actually got the page up here. You can get 10 for $295 for 10. 100 is $575, and 1,000 is $1,500. So you can get one for $125, or if you buy 1,000, you get them for $1.50.
$1.50. Yeah.
Right. But then you have to decide whether now the next run of ISBNs that I buy is going to be 1,000 on the next run. There's a lot of reasons why you like to do it in that group, because it keeps them in order and they do point back to the publisher and all that. But you also have to remember you need an ISBN number for every binding that you do. So we're not even talking about print rights here, we're talking about binding. So I normally do a collector's edition, a hardback edition, a trade paperback edition, a mass market edition, a digital ebook version, and an audiobook version. So what was that? 6. So that's 6 ISBNs for every book. And the round was going to be 20 books. So you're talking about, what is that, 120 in it? Math sucks.
So my husband and I started a really, really tiny little micro publisher in Finland called Silverbark Books, which just publishes our books. Right. That's its purpose. And the reason why we created it is because it is easier to request from the library in Finland. It's easier to request like 10, 20 ISBNs at a time. And that's more or less what we put out in a year. So we just use our ISBNs.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and like I said, it just depends on what you're doing or whatever. But here's the only reason really to purchase an ISBN in America. Now, if I live in a country where they were like free, I'd be like, give me 1,000, give me 10,000. I don't care, they're free. But here's the reason in America why you would want to do it. The reality is ISBNs are the book. So if you change the name of the book, it doesn't matter. If you change the ISBN, it does. So let's say I get the free one from Amazon, and then later on the bookstores are like, hey, we would really like to carry that. We see that you're selling a lot of copies and we want to carry it. Well, now you're going to have to get an ISBN. And not a big deal if you're not going for marketing, like to the New York Times bestseller or the Chicago, whatever. If you're not trying to get on these bigger lists, which track sales by ISBN number, then it's not a big deal. But the nice thing about having one ISBN number for things is it goes across the board. Every reseller that is selling your books now all goes into the same well of, oh, this is how many copies were sold of this book, because here we're just looking it up by the ISBN number. And yes, for those things, you can go, here's the ISBN number for each binding, add them together, and bam, there you go. When you have multiple different ISBN numbers, it doesn't work that way for the same title, as in the same binding. So most people are not going to do that. Most indie authors are never going to try and shoot for that New York Times bestselling list. Most indie authors aren't going to try to sell on multiple platforms. So it really just depends on what you're doing, what you're trying to do. Now, I'm not really shooting for the New York Times bestseller list, so that's not why I'm doing it, but I will be selling on multiple platforms. And so therefore, having an ISBN number that will track across it. Plus with Bowker, you get a bunch of other services. The library is actually connected. The Library System of America is connected to Bowker. And I might be saying that wrong. It might be Boker. I don't know. I think I've actually heard it pronounced Boker as well. However you pronounce it, it's a fantasy word. It's fantasy speak. It doesn't mean anything. It's not a real word. So
I mean, I as I said, I go with ISBNs because the problem with Amazon's thing is then you're tied into the Amazon platform very definitively, and it's very hard to get out of it if you're tied into their number, and that's all how your content is identified. So I do recommend it, but then I live in a country where ISBNs are free, so it's not a monetary decision for me.
Right. Whereas, I mean, it is money for an indie author here. Yeah. So, you do have to think about that. But that's the reality of it. And that's why you would want to do it, why you wouldn't want to do it. And it really depends on you making it a business decision on which route you're going.
Absolutely. But that being said, I think we have covered quite a lot of content on the ISBNs and copyrights and the death of platforms and my slaughter, either mine or the dragons. To be
We haven't reached the climax yet.
Yeah.
We don't know which way it's going to go. Is the heroine going to win, or is the bad demon monster going to win? So we'll I guess update on that when that time finally comes.
If Jeff Bezos replaces me on this podcast, you'll know which way it's gone.
And I will probably become a lot more successful if that happens. No knocking you. I'm just saying, if I did a podcast with Jeff Bezos, I think that maybe my name recognition might possibly go up a little bit more than with even though I love you to death. Just saying. I think if I got replaced by Jeff Bezos, your name recognition would go up. It has nothing to do with either one of us. It has to do with, that multi-billionaire dude. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, but when it comes to pirating, it really you just got to stay vigilant. Again, I haven't been vigilant. I didn't tell my story. So I had stuff that wasn't pirated. It was actually plagiarized. And there is a difference between piracy and plagiarism. Mm-hmm. So piracy is they're just stealing your stuff and throwing it out there because they don't give a crap. They're just putting your name on it and your stuff and all of that.
In my case, it still had my copyright page.
Right.
So they didn't even like try to hide the fact that it's my content. They're just offering.
That was the funny thing. The way she explained it first, I thought that they had plagiarized it. So when I went to the site, when I started doing the searching, I was like, okay, how do I find my books if they've changed some stuff? So I did some searches and nothing came up. And then I was like, well, let me just look up my name. And I threw my name in. I was like, oh, there it all is. It's all just right there. So that's piracy, where they're not really, I mean, they're giving away for free. So they might be making money on advertising, whatever, but they're not making money off the product. Plagiarism is when they actually take your stuff, put their name on it, and sell it as their product. And that's what happened to me. Now, I didn't catch it. It was so the stuff that I was writing for Sony, they did start releasing it before the game was canceled. I mean, I wrote tons of stuff that no one will ever even see, but they did start using it as a marketing piece, because that was kind of the whole idea for bringing me on. And somebody had taken that, put their name on it, and self-published it for sale, because Sony was just giving away for free. And I got a message from Sony that said, hey, somebody's doing this with the stuff that you wrote. We're on top of it. And then a couple hours later, I got a message from them saying, okay, we've directly talked to Amazon and they've directly taken care of it. So this is a done deal. But that's also having a multi-billion-dollar corporation and their gaggle of lawyers contacting another multi-billion-dollar corporation and saying, hey, so you can't do this. And Amazon went, oh, yeah, no, we can't do that. It's gone. But I really didn't find out about it until it was kind of already handled.
That is also, like, to me, like, I don't like piracy because it, I feel that content creators deserve to be paid, unless the content creator themselves is making the book available for free, as I've done multiple times.
Yep.
Which is fine. Like, you can do that for name recognition and so on. But if it's not, the content creator deserves to be paid. So I don't like piracy, but I would probably not have bothered if it hadn't been for this whole Amazon thing to issue the takedown notice, because it doesn't bother me that much. It's still my content. It's being distributed illegally, but it's still mine.
Right.
What this guy did to you was he literally stole your content
and put his name on it as if he wrote it.
Yeah, that is,
or she. I guess I shouldn't be sexist here. I don't know what it was. I never even looked at it.
They took it. They took your content and they put their name on it. And yeah.
So full disclosure, I actually used to be a big pirater. Before I was a professional. Now, I never pirated books. I never pirated individual things. I pirated TV shows, because this is back when I was pirating, it was before streaming. And so the only way to get certain things was either spend a lot of money on, the DVDs, because we didn't have Blu-rays back then. Or a lot of them just didn't exist. Like, I ended up pirating a bunch of Doctor Who's because they weren't even available via buying them.
I pirated because you did not get all of the American TV.
Right. And I pirated a lot of British TV for the same reason. It just wasn't available here. Or it was available like at the very beginning of Doctor Who when it was airing. We are actually getting it a year behind everyone else. And so I would pirate it so that I could watch it while it was being dropped. So I didn't have to wait till next year and stuff like that. Now,
I don't do it anymore. These days I pay
I don't do it anymore either.
Yeah. I pay for streaming. The moment streaming became available, I was like, I can stop. I can stop doing this. Yeah.
I honestly felt that it was a victimless crime like everyone else feels, because we're talking about big shows that have multi-million-dollar budgets and everybody's been paid and blah, 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 blah. And so I didn't feel bad about it. That's why I said I would never pirate a book or never pirate an album, like all that, whatever that MP3 that Metallica got all pissed off with and all that. I never did any of that stuff. I mean, I bought CDs because that money's going to support the artist. So like before Pandora and all the different streaming music sites, I had thousands of music CDs, and I've gotten rid of all of them since then, because now it's just like I just turn on Pandora. And I get that the artists don't get as much from Pandora, but they're getting something. And they're volunteering to sign up for Pandora. So they've made the choice that this is good for them. Even though they might not make as much as if had I bought their album, but they signed on to that, not me. But I really did. I thought it was a victimless crime when we're talking about, you know, a big TV show or even a movie. I don't know if I pirated any movies, but definitely TV shows was my thing. And then I became a professional entertainer, and I was like, yeah, no, this is not a victimless. Everybody was involved in that, and there are still royalties being paid on that. And sure, maybe that actor is richer than I am, but it doesn't matter. They still were a professional at this. And that's what really opened my eyes. And I was like, nope. And so I haven't pirated anything in a really, really long time. I mean, 18 years probably, that I've been pirate free.
I have, yeah. It has been since Netflix made American content available to us.
Right.
At that point, I
obviously that's also
open
up. Where now it's just worthless. It's worthless to pirate music, because you can get a free. I mean, I pay for Pandora, but you can get a free Pandora account. You know, whatever. Yeah. So, and then there's that whatever that radio one is. Well,
I mean, I have a YouTube subscription that allows me to listen to all the music on YouTube, which, believe me, if a song exists, it's there.
Right. Well, that's one of the things that I'm very cognizant of, because I do watch more YouTube than I ever have, and I pay attention to. I mean, even like if I'm looking up some news or whatever, ABC, NBC, Fox, CNN, whatever, I will look. There's a ton of YouTubers that are just pirating the content going on there, and you can tell because it isn't the news organization. So I will always say, don't recommend this channel. I don't turn them in anymore, because I know YouTube doesn't give a crap, and so that's a waste of my time to be like, you know, this is some foreign entity that's just stealing this content to make money. Like, oh well, I don't care. But I do every time. I always do. Don't recommend this channel to me anymore, and I don't want to see it. I don't want to have any part of it. If I'm going to watch something from CNN, I want CNN to get paid for whatever content it is that I'm watching, or whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, even news channels, I pay attention to and make sure that I don't. And where I was getting with that is music. So if I do want to listen to like the only time I go to YouTube for a song is if I want to listen to a specific song. And when you type in that specific song, you get 30 different versions of it, and most are just pirated.
Yeah.
And so I would just not.
YouTube Music does it the way that Spotify does it, etc., etc. So it's like the artist. Yeah, they pay the artist. So it's a little different. But yeah, so if you're on YouTube proper, be aware of piracy, plagiarism, more accurately, probably.
Right.
But yeah, so plagiarism so piracy is a big deal, but it's one that I can kind of, as I say, I can make peace with to a certain extent. Plagiarism is just vile. I'm sorry, but it is actual, literal, intellectual property theft. So that was us on copyright, my fight with Amazon, deep rabbit holes, plagiarism, why piracy is bad, and what an ISBN is. So I hope you guys got some value out of today's meanderings. after we had gone to such trouble to set a tight scene, we went straight down the plot holes. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you soon for another episode of Just in Time. We will see you soon for another episode of Releasing Your Inner Dragon.